What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Get the Bag podcast. We're so excited to see you here. It's been a minute since we've done a live. It just kind of happened, but before we get going, don't forget to like, subscribe. We have some really exciting announcements. We'll save maybe until the end of some things that we've been talking about. I feel like for over a year now.
Yeah.
I'm your host, Claudia Castro. I got my co-host Tim Park.
What up, man?
But thank you guys for tuning in. Today's going to be a really fun conversation. We talk a lot about the power of network and collaborating and putting yourself out there, and how it's sort of real estate is really a small world, and how I at least was introduced to this person who we'll talk to today. But again, any questions that come up, make sure you guys drop them in the comments. But without further ado, so today's guest, his name is Jason. We connected. I'm trying to remember how, but it was through a colleague of mine, a old coworker, Derek, who him and Jason go way back. And it just so happens like, hey, check out my guy. He's in real estate too. And boom, I think we met somewhere around this time or sometime last year. And we've kept in touch. He's an entrepreneur. He's a real estate investor, seasoned tech industry leader. So over 15 years of, product management experience. And now he's switching over and sharing his wealth of knowledge through adversary services and partnerships through his company, J.Samson Solutions. And he just came out with a podcast called The Construct Podcast. Really, really cool stuff talking about the journey of building and connecting, which I completely love. I'm really excited to have this conversation. Let's welcome Jason Samson to the Get the Bag podcast. What's going on?
Hey, how's it going, Claudia? How's it going, Tim?
What's going on, Jason?
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Yeah. So I was just kind of recapping because I was thinking about the time that we connected, and and it's crazy because I met your wife, your sister before I met you. And then I didn't realize it until maybe a month later, where I don't know who I was talking to. And then was like, oh, that's your brother. It's just like crazy how real estate is such a small world and how you're all connected.
Totally. I mean, I think both of us made the transition from tech, the two of us. And so, our mutual friend, Derek, goes way back. And when I made the switch to real estate, he said, hey, I got to connect you with Claudia. She used to work with me. She's going full time. I think you guys are doing some similar stuff. And then we got on a text thread, and I'm like, yo, Claudia, send me some deals. Like, let's go. And then, working on that. But then, and then I actually sent your contact to my sister, and she's like, I just met her last week. I met her at a meetup. So
right,
such a small network, especially when you put yourself out there, put that energy out there.
I love it. So talk to us. You have 15 years of product management. That's a really long time. I thought I've been pretty much in the product world for 6-7 years, and that felt like 20 years. So I can only imagine 15 years. Talk to us. Because I'm sure you go over this a lot, like your background, but like what kind of drew you to real estate to leave? Because I'm sure that's 15 years in product management, being a product leader, like that's pretty good money. First off, like, you have a family. So talk to us about what that thought process was of like getting into real estate to eventually leaving. I would say maybe a comfortable job, maybe not. I don't know. You tell us.
It was pretty good. Yeah, it was pretty hard to walk away from. So I've been around real estate my entire life. My mom has been a mortgage broker. My dad was a real estate agent. And so I had it around my entire life. My sister, who I mentioned, she's been in the lending side of it for as long as I can remember in her career. And I was always just in tech, not kind of hovering around it a little bit. I actually worked at fintech companies, so financial technology companies. So I was at, for about 7-8 years, I was at a SaaS company, software as a service company, that built lending technology for all the credit unions and financial institutions. So I was just surrounded by it and kind of like, around it. And then I worked at Rocket Mortgage for a couple of years. And so like I was around the industry, but never actually got into it. And so probably about 2015, 2016, I just started getting into bigger pockets and listening to the podcasts and starting to just get really intrigued and figuring out, okay, hey, maybe I can continue this tech career, but then do this real estate on the side. Um, it's really interesting because I think, you know, um, tech I thought was going to be my career for
Right.
till I retired. Like you said, it fortunately pays well. I think I fell into a great industry, and it took care of me and my family. But what I started to realize over the years was that as I started to get higher, into the corporate ladder, I started to realize how little control I had over my future and
Mm,
how little of the actual pie I was getting, right? Like
Mm.
those bonuses are nice, but it's just a bonus. And any given year, some variable can control what your bonus is. Or
mm,
here's an example that just crushed me. I wanted to promote someone on my team for like 3 to 4 years, but every
Mhm.
single year, because you have this small window to promote somebody, there was some type of force that didn't allow that to happen. And
Mm.
looking at this person who deserves to be promoted, who deserves to have more for himself and his family, and because of changes in the org structure or changes in the strategy or changes in the budget, this person was not rewarded, and that kind of
Mhm.
right.
crushed me as a manager and as a leader. And so I just was looking at things like there's got to be a way for me to control this a little bit more. And so as I started to listen to the podcast and get into it a little bit more, all of my energy was starting to go to real estate. Like I used to listen to tech podcasts and product management books and just
Yep.
consuming that all the time.
Mhm.
For the past 3 to 4 years, it was all real estate, bigger pockets, all the different podcasts. And so I realized all my energy is going here. I want to learn about this and my, and so just kind of follow your energy, follow your effort. It's kind of like what Mark Cuban says, follow your effort and that's where you should go. And so I just started to realize that if I wanted to take control of my future, this was going to be the path. And so um, it didn't happen. My story isn't about like I made the jump and I finally transitioned. I got laid off. So I went to a startup, and that startup, midway through my tenure there, got acquired. And through
Mm,
acquisitions, some teams get laid off. So I got laid
Yeah.
off during that acquisition. And the interesting thing is, the very first thought I had when I got laid off was, this is my shot to go full time.
Mm.
mm.
And so, like, the very first thought I had was that, and here I am.
That's
I love it.
awesome.
I can keep going.
No.
Thought
No,
that was a
no,
good
that's
pause.
great.
Yeah.
I think, a lot of people can resonate with that just because, I know I was in tech, so I was on more on the social media, analytics side. So, but I was also laid off, and it's a situation where kind of, okay, I'm going to take this path now. So I think a lot of people either feel like they need to jump into another tech job or another job that's similar instead of taking the plunge into something totally different that is you don't have the education there yet or the knowledge, but
Or
just believe,
confidence
yeah,
even.
just believing in
Confidence,
yourself.
absolutely.
So for you to, jump straight into that, was it more a confidence thing, or you believed in yourself, or you had the support system around you that you felt like you could, jump full time, full force and full time into real estate?
Yeah, so I don't wanna sugarcoat it. It was a process, and it wasn't right away, right? And so for
And
me,
and what before you go, what year was this? How long ago did this happen?
this happened, about a year and a half ago. So,
Okay.
yeah, late
Oh, wow.
2022, I
Okay.
was laid off, and I got jumped full time into real estate, really got going not until about the summertime, July. So, I had a comp package, and it gave me a few months runway to figure things out. And luckily, I had a great network of people, and so I was getting people, reaching out and saying, "Hey, I want to pull you into this role." And I was getting some different offers. I was getting to, final round interviews with things, and I actually had an offer on the table for another really good role, a director role to manage a team in a large financial institution. And it was kind of just like this carrot dangling in front of me, and it was actually, I feel like, my final test, right? Like
Mm,
it was a former boss who said, "I have this role for you." I saw my future. It was another 10 years of the same.
Mm.
mm.
And I had a few months to think about it. And I think what I realized was that I was not gonna do that. I wanted to go full time. And so, you asked, like, was it a confidence thing? Was it a support thing? It took me a while to get the confidence. Luckily I did have the support. My partner, my wife has been amazing and was just like, go figure yourself out, you know? And so she gave me the space, the the time to do that. I had days when I was just laying on the couch, just thinking like, "Am I ready to do this?"
Yeah.
So it was a lot of inner work to kind of transform,
Mm,
right? Like it's a
Mm,
whole different lifestyle.
yeah.
You get a lot of freedom, you have a lot of responsibility and everything being an entrepreneur. But it's uh it's a whole different game, having that very secure W-2 with the, knowing every 2 weeks or whatnot that you're gonna be taken care of, whatever the benefits are. I had great 401k packages, all that stuff. And so I had this, very pragmatic path forward for the rest of my career that I could feel
mhm,
comfortable and feel safe, but I always knew there was more. I always had this entrepreneurial bug in me, and I knew that uh, there was an opening right here in my career for me to actually figure out if I could just blow the top off of that, right, and see if there was something that I could do there. And so, um, I think, the support of my wife, doing the inner work, and then the next thing was getting out there and networking. And when I
mm,
finally got off the couch and said, "Okay, I'm going to do this," I finally said, to my former boss, "I'm not going to take the offer. I'm going to go full time here." And that's when like it really clicked in my head that let's go do this. And I started networking out here in Hawaii and networking online and talking to different people. And that's where I think the power of the networks really give you the confidence, because you give what I love about real estate is that everyone's business model is different.
mhm,
No one's like an apples to apples competitor with you, right?
Mhm.
Because someone has a very different business model as far as like what part of the value chain you're focusing on in real estate, and then what niche, what market you're in, and then what
right,
sub markets you're actually focused on, right? And so like
Right.
all those different combinations and iterations of like business models, no one's really an apples to apples competitor with you. And then at any given moment, you can shift and try something different too. And so what I
right,
loved about it was like networking. I would just get all these examples of different people. Now I talk to Claudia, and you're like, "Hey, I'm doing wholesaling, and these are my markets." And I talk to different people like, "Oh, I'm doing fix and flipping," and someone else is like, "I'm doing furnished rentals, short-term rentals." And so you just figure out what everyone's doing, and then I started to like hone in on what it is that I want to focus on. And so now I've focused. What I realized was that I can only focus on two markets at a time. When I start to look at a third or fourth market, I get to analysis paralysis and I can't get
yes,
anything done, right?
Mm,
And
yeah.
so two markets is my max. Maybe some people have capacity for more, but I focus on Hawaii and Las Vegas. Those are my two
Nice.
markets that I really like. They're high growth markets, really good, income potential, lots of room for growth. And there's just a lot of great things happening in both markets. So those are the two markets I focus on. I primarily focus on furnished rentals. So I like the short term and midterm space,
Mm,
mostly because, there's opportunity for cash flow.
yep,
And also, just it helps, accelerate growth and accelerate some of your, appreciation. And so that's been kind of my niche. And we can get into some of the other businesses that have like sprung from that. But really all the networking and all that stuff is really what helped me focus on what, find my focus and then really go deep into my niche.
wow, that's, yeah, if you guys listening in, like, the gems that you just dropped, I wanna, like, really pinpoint the networking, because
mhm.
that's something, Tim and I are, like, we literally preach with anybody that gets started, and we're working on, a course ourselves, and that's one of the building blocks is, like, you need to focus on cultivating relationships, because you never know where, somebody you met online or somebody you met at an event, you never know when they may need somebody like you, because like you said, each real estate company has their own niche, right? For us, yes, it's wholesaling, but even then we pivoted to be like, we're a boutique, we offer more than just acquisitions, we offer, financial services, you name it, it's so unique. So you never know where it's like, "Oh, Jason, that's right. He just blah blah. Hey, let me hit him up for something." You just never know, especially if you bring that value to someone. So for those listening, I think it's really key if you're just getting started. Like there really is no excuses. Like just focus on just getting to know. I mean, we're online anyways, like right? We're on
Mhm.
Instagram. Like why not be intentional with the time, with the resources that are literally at hand? And I want to commend you because I'm sure it wasn't easy. You're probably skipped through. Maybe there was a time period where you were feeling some type of way, because I mean, getting laid off is maybe a shot to your ego,
Yeah.
especially because you invested so
Mhm.
much time. I got laid off at a job, that I was head of product at. And I thought like, oh, I'm just going to coast here because my mind was already in real estate as well. So it was almost like I manifested that. I want to say probably, but it took me a little bit longer to take that full step to go full time. And even now that I have been, there's been ups and downs where I'm just questioning myself, questioning every decision of like, did I make the right choice? Like I could just go to a job or I could do this. And that is entrepreneurship and why people like what you see on Instagram, TikTok, the glitz and the glam, the rented Bentley, like what people think is entrepreneurship is really not. It's questioning yourself. It's, feeling like crap. It's feeling the highs. So it's just, there's so many ups and downs that go through it. But you were able to focus on the relationships and then take action from there. And so I love it because people stop at a certain point and don't keep going because either they get stuck in analysis paralysis. We also went from focusing on like 4-5 markets when we joined forces because we're like, because me being assistant, you understand being in product, you have to simplify things, right? With your process. If you're doing too much and you're still not there yet, you need to simplify your systems, focus on a little bit and then add more as you go. But we're like, okay, let's just be the best in the LA and I think there is like Kansas City. Like let's dominate that market. And then it's like, all right, cool. Then we can add more. So I think that's another thing that we can definitely dive into. But talk to us about, because you've barely been this, not even a year full time, it sounds like. So what has that been when you took the step forward, you knew your market, you knew your avatar, what action steps did you take to get to where you're at now? Because I know you've acquired some properties. Talk to us about the strategy behind those.
So, luckily I was, been able to have that 401k that I was able to build up, and then I realized, hey, I can actually leverage this 401k and start to invest. And so I started to look at it and I was thinking, okay, well, I can probably, there's only so much that I can do with it because, real estate is such a, cash heavy and capital intensive business. So I started to find ways to leverage that. And one way was to, get a self-directed IRA. And then the other way is to actually just take the penalty out, cash it out and take the penalty.
Right.
And go from there. And so I found, I was just all over the MLS and I was networking with different agents in the markets that I was in. And I found my first property that I wanted to get into, which was property in Las Vegas, and got the property through networking. I found different creative ways to do it. So I got a DSCR loan and furnished the property and got it going. What I quickly realized was, hey, my money's going to run out pretty soon, and I need to find creative ways to stretch it out. And that's when I found the subject to community, and creative finance community. And so I joined that. So first of all, I fast tracked all this by joining 2 key mentorships. I joined Rob Bill's Host Camp, which is, Rob Abasolo's Host Camp that teaches you everything about short-term rentals. And then I joined Sub 2 with Pace Morby. The combination of those 2 really focused me on my niche. So if anybody out there is like, how do I fast track? Spend the money on a mentorship because it's going to fast track you and it's going to open you up to the network and community that's going to be within your niche. And so creative finance just blew my mind. I realized, holy crap, I don't have to spend 20% down for something. I can get in for, a 10% entry fee or something like that. And so that's when I started to go crazy because I started to find all these creative finance deals. I started to network even more with wholesalers. I realized that I'm not going to source the deals. There are some very, professional wholesalers who do this, 10 times better than me. And so I started networking with wholesalers to find deals. And then I started to figure out, I started to just talk a little bit more on social media what I'm doing. And I had just people within my network raise their hand and reach out and say, hey, can I get in on that deal with you? I was like, oh, sure. Let me figure out how to do this like partnership, like an equity partnership. And so, I did about 3 or 4 deals right away with really key partners who brought a lot of the capital. And the value that I bring is that I'm, sourcing the deals, managing the deals, and property managing the entire thing. And so I was able to acquire them. Again, my niche has been in furnished rentals, and so most of the deals that I've been getting into have been creative, and I've been furnishing them and putting them as furnished rentals.
That's awesome. That is
Yeah,
so cool. Can you? I know that you've been in this field for a while, and it's your niche. Can you walk us through maybe like how you structure that
yeah.
for us as well too? Like if you have partnerships or if you're doing it on your own, and what that looks like in that space, especially on a creative financing side too. So,
Yeah, so I mean, for the ones I have on my own, I think that's pretty straightforward, as far as
right.
like, but the partnerships I think is interesting, and I'm still very early figuring all this out. But the partnerships I've had, we've spun up a joint LLC, right? Where
Okay.
all of us
Yep.
we have, so it's very clear what the ownership is, and then we spell out what some of the things are. So some things we like to have in our LLC is before we pay ourselves out, we need to have like 10K in reserves, right?
Hmm.
And payouts will, we're not going to cash flow every single month and distribute cash flow. We're going to do that on a quarterly or biannual basis,
Mm.
just because if anything comes up, capital expenditures, we want to be able to make sure we can take care of that.
Yeah. Sure.
But as far as like finding the partners, I take a lot of time to analyze a deal, and when I look at how much equity is needed, I account for not just the upfront entry fee, but also like any furnishing or rehab that needs to be done up front, and then anything we want to have for reserves, and also
Hmm.
legal fees and everything.
Yeah.
And then I take that entire upfront cash to close, and then I split it up between the different equity partners. Most of the deals I have like 2 or 3 partners,
Hmm.
and they'll bring 80 to 90% of the capital, and then I'll bring 5 to 10 or 20% of the capital.
Okay.
And so because the value I have is in managing the deal and
Manage.
everything,
Yeah.
Right.
so
Yeah. Right.
they'll bring most of the capital. It's basically a passive investment for them,
Hmm.
and yeah, we structure it that way, and I've got a good few deals so far that I've done this way, and some of those partners want to continue. I actually had a partner yesterday who was like, "Hey, when's the next deal? Let's go." So it's worked out so far. It is a lot of work, right? I'm not going to lie. Not just getting a furnished rental set up and managing all of that.
Hmm.
That's a whole process in itself. But then stabilizing it and then getting it out to market. And what I
Sure.
like to do is send out quarterly reports every quarter. This is what
That's
we
cool.
did. Here's the financials. Here's how the project's going. Here's what the leases look like, or what the
Hmm.
occupancy rate and everything is. And so it's quite a lot of work, but it's definitely worth it.
Yeah. So you manage it, right? You're on the management side uh,
Yeah,
of the
yeah,
partnership, right?
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, they structure me as I'm in the LLC. I have like the signing power and everything, just to
Hmm.
sign things quicker.
Right.
Whenever we have like assignment contracts and all that stuff.
Of course.
Yeah, it kind of led to another niche that I or a business that opportunity that came up. So, um, as I started to acquire furnished rental properties and manage them, I came across now business partners who have quite a few furnished rentals themselves, especially around
Hmm.
Hawaii, different markets. And we started to talk. This was back in October, and they were saying, "Hey, I have a bunch of properties. We pay 20%, or more for management. You have a growing, amount of properties that you have furnished rentals. Why
Hmm.
don't we just start our own furnished rental company and pay ourselves
Mm.
less so that we can save money? And
Right.
then after a while, once we get our operating systems and everything built, we can offer that service out to other people." So we started Collective Stays, which is a furnished rental management company,
Mm.
and we started that back in October. We have all of our properties collectively together, which is why it's
Mm.
called Stays. And we have about 20 properties total that we manage. And we started to bring on clients. So we have about actually 25 total now, including the ones that are our clients that we started to bring on. And so that is kind of like how the power of networking and the
Hmm.
power of really focusing in on my niche spun up an entire new business opportunity. And now, I have this separate business that I started to run that we've grown to 25 properties, and now a team of about over 5 people that's running that.
I love that.
That's really cool. Is this in the markets that you're in only?
Yes, Hawaii, Vegas. Actually, they have some properties in Florida as well, so we have
Hmm.
a couple properties there. So we're starting to
Nice.
spread to a couple different markets, testing them out to see if we want to
Sure.
expand or not. But it's really the systems and everything in place, and I attribute a lot of that to tech, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
My tech experience, like I couldn't, it was super exciting getting in there and like starting to do some of the maps and figuring out some of the processes and
Right.
standard, SOPs, standard operating procedures, and start to have the team scale up. And so that's where some of that tech experience has come into play.
It
And
really,
going
it
back to
really
mentorship.
is helpful. I have
Mm-hmm.
found too with how you view, you're naturally kind of coming from product, kind of an operator when you come into like the business side, because as a product manager, even director of product, whatever, your mind is built on logic and systems. So naturally, that's what you need when you're come with the business. So that's that's one thing that I've just naturally just come in. I've probably driven Tim crazy with like, hey,
It's
where are we
all
at with that
good.
or
I
these
love it.
documents? But it's like you do need it.
Come check out
Um,
this flow chart, Tim.
I know,
right. I
right?
know. I'm all like,
Enough with the flow charts and
I'm
the
all
spreadsheet.
No, you should see our Notion. I mean, she went bananas on it. I'm like, man, this is awesome. Like,
yeah,
Notion's
when your
amazing.
mind goes crazy, like,
yeah.
yeah, that's you can't help it. But I mean, that's what you need. So I think that's where I always attribute. I always say too, with like your 9 to 5, whatever career you're in, like you can always find something to help you in your business, whether it's like marketing or whatnot. So that's where product has
Mm-hmm.
definitely helped. Um, as far as you mentioned, really some important key points with regards to mentorship that I think people aren't willing to invest in that. And we've been part of a wholesaling
Mm-hmm.
mentorship group, and that's something we've talked about too, as far as taking that next step. Because one of the other pivots we've done,
Mm-hmm.
based off like our vision as a team, as a group, is going straight to is doing commercial.
Mm-hmm.
We've
Yeah.
always like envisioned like we want to do big multifamily deals. It's almost a similar effort on like any wholesaling, but we eventually want to be part of those deals, right? And
Yeah.
like why not attribute or why not use the same strategies to get residential wholesale deals with commercial?
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the aspects that we've done is pivoting to that. And so what the mentorship is such a key point because people aren't willing to invest in themselves. And it's like, yeah, you probably did have to put, because I know that's one group I've also considered too, because you're not just paying to have access to their resources, or like their documents or course,
Mm-hmm.
it's the people. And
Yeah.
I know the people there
Community.
go crazy, like
Yeah.
insane amount of value that you get. So I'm sure what's like 10, 15 grand or so for his mentorship or so.
For Pace Morby for the subject to, yeah, I think it's around the 10 range.
I'm
I
sure
think
you
it
made that
continues
back, or at least like, what I mean, easily.
yeah, the
Mm-hmm.
ROI on that it's 10x, right? And
Yeah.
so first of all, like just networking, I just want to pause on that really quick. Like networking and talking to people, I think when we talk about everyone's real estate, business model is different. It's not just different; it's always evolving. I didn't know you're getting into
Right.
commercial, right? And that's we
Right.
start having these conversations. So having these conversations, because entrepreneurs are moving so fast, you can't just always broadcast that here's where I'm pivoting to until you have a
Mm-hmm.
Right.
conversation with them. And
Right.
that's when some of the collaboration comes in and said, oh, hey, you're getting into commercial. Either I'm thinking about it too, or I know this person who's getting into it, so I'll connect you, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
And related to mentorships, I think a lot of people that I hear that don't want to do it, they think, oh, I don't want to pay for the course, right?
Mm.
But those are the same people who paid thousands of dollars for their undergrad college education
Or their iPhone.
or their iPhone. Yeah, it's fair,
Yeah.
but it's like, it's a
That's
different
funny.
form of education. And I think
Yeah.
back to my parents, right? And I think about they were in real estate for so long. They didn't have access to this type of stuff.
No.
Right.
There's a good old boys club back in the day that those that were the people that shared the different industry trade secrets,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how people got ahead. We're in a
Right.
world where now like people actually want to share everything, and
Yeah.
it's in the form of mentorships, and that's the form of education now. And so why not pay for it? You'll pay
Right.
you'll pay for a certificate, right, to advance yourself in your W-2. Why wouldn't you pay the same amount for a mentorship? And it's not
Mm-hmm.
just the course, it's the people. It's the like-minded
Right.
people who are doing the same thing as you. So going back to the networking piece, you're getting access to people who are thinking like you, who have the same struggles
Mm-hmm.
as you,
That's it.
who are 2 steps ahead of you, and success leaves clues, like Tony Robbins says, right? So you just fast track yourself by not just learning from the actual mentor who's sharing all of their secrets, but all the
Mm-hmm.
people who are at your level, or some people who might be behind you, right? You got to have three people in your life: a mentor who knows what you're doing, peers that are doing the same thing as you, and then people who are two steps behind you. And that's what
Mm,
you get with these mentorships. And you get that I would say, like, the actual course you're paying for is probably 10% of the value. 80 to 90% of the value is the people in the network.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm like a salesman for it or whatnot, but I'm just an advocate because
Yeah,
Well,
it's
because
helping me
it's
absolutely.
fast track
it's
where I'm
it's
at.
worked. I mean,
Yeah.
the proof is in the pudding for anybody who has. First off, I think the reason why when we say why aren't people, I think because people are scared.
Mhm.
People are scared to invest in themselves, scared of their own success, and scared to be the person that doesn't know. And I always,
Yeah.
once I've realized, like, okay, I'm the smartest person in the room, that should never be the case. I need
Bro.
to, and it's having that
Mhm.
self awareness too
Yeah.
in where you're at and being like, because some people will stay there and then they'll complain, well, why can't I take
Yeah.
myself to the next level? It's because you like being the smartest person in the room, but that's not going to get you from point A to B. So
Mhm.
it's having that self awareness that, hey, you know what? I need to step my game up. I need to make myself uncomfortable. And why
Mhm.
so many people stay in their 9 to 5s? It's comfortable. I mean, it's understandable. We're in a crazy market too, like,
Sure.
especially if you have families, like you have a family. But people, like, I think naturally, like the brain wants you to be comfortable. So you literally have to
Mhm.
fight yourself, fight your mind to put yourself in a position to be uncomfortable. And one of those, even like investing in yourself, people rather invest in garbage than themselves. That's
Yeah.
just kind of the
Yeah.
society we have. And when it's just having that self-awareness, that's kind of like the biggest point that I've found throughout these last couple months is like, I shouldn't be the smartest person in the room. What do I need to do to be the dumbest person in the room? Not to say
Yep.
that I am, but like, that's the only way for you to really grow is to be like, I know nothing.
Yeah. And get into those rooms and get into rooms where there are other people like you who are not
Yeah.
afraid to ask their dumb questions, right? Like, there are no dumb questions, but everyone just asks the questions and you're curious and you're learning. And those are the types of environments that people like us like to be in. And
Yeah.
I hope that if there's somebody out there that's like on the borderline of like, hey, I've been thinking
Mhm.
about making the jump or starting this up on the side, just stop overthinking it. Just do it.
Yeah.
Just invest in
Yeah.
yourself. No one can take away your education at the end of the day.
Yeah.
No.
When you
Yeah.
die, all of the stuff is going to be gone, but your education is something that no one can take away. They can
Yeah.
take away everything else. So I definitely
It
recommend it.
it's funny because we talk about community, and I know, someone had told me that, like, I don't send my kids to an Ivy League school because of the education, because all the schools are about the same, right? I send them for the networking there, the relationships that they're gonna build for years, and the business that they can generate from just knowing someone that you went to school with and you network. So it's just a community play when you're thinking about business school or anything like that. So we're saying the same kind of thing,
Yeah,
but on, with the mentor and with that community, because those people that are in the community are going to refer you business, are going to generate business, just like, if you were to go to college. So that's
exactly.
kind of what we're kind of describing here is that the community is so important, and get into these helps you get into other rooms that your niche is in too. So if you niche down in a certain field, then you need to focus on that. But when you
Sure.
tell people about what your niche is, then that opens the door to other possibilities.
And I think there's built-in
Exactly.
trust there, right? When you're part of these communities and you're like, hey, should I do a deal with this person? If you're in the community, it's just like one less barrier of trust that you have to overcome. And you're like,
Right.
you know what?
Right.
This is a good person. They're not just coming off the street. They actually had to pay a decent amount to actually get into it. So it's a higher barrier of entry. And because
Hmm.
you have that higher barrier of entry, you can trust those people that you're doing business with at least a little bit more. You still
Sure.
should vet everyone out, but
Of course.
there's that built in as well, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I know we have a couple minutes here. I wanted to touch upon sort of the family aspect of it too,
Yeah,
because that always I've always said it starts with your family. It first starts with you, but then like your family and into business. So how has this whole transition been like living in Hawaii, which is amazing. You're making me want to travel. And I'm living
I
in
know, right?
Florida. I'm living in the beautiful like South Florida. But like talk to us about that and like the importance and really the longevity of like what you're building right now with real estate.
Yeah, so I mean, we moved to Hawaii because there was a real estate opportunity. So we listed our house for sale in Long Beach at the peak of summer 2021 because we just saw the market going crazy, and we happened to have a long-term rental here in Hawaii. And when we sold our house, we were kind of like, hey, we're going to be homeless here soon. Where should we go? I have three boys, and so they're 9, 7, and 3. At the
Mm,
time, my youngest was just born, so they were fairly young, and they were at a point where we could potentially move, without disrupting a lot of their social circles. And so we just said, "Hey, let's just move to Hawaii. We have family here. My wife's sister has been here for 10 years, 15 years, and let's move into our rental. And instead of renting it out, let's live in it." And we really found a community here. Not only that, in the real estate community, but just a community in general. And moving into real estate, I think it's becoming an entrepreneur. It's not easy.
mhm,
I'm working more hours than I did at W2.
Right.
My
mhm.
stress level is 10 times higher,
Yeah.
but
Telling
my
us.
satisfaction level is actually 10 times higher as well, right? And so I think that's the way that like my nervous system can handle it because I'm satisfied more than I am
Mm,
Mm,
stressed, and
mm,
my tolerance level for stress is higher. But it also gives me the ability to, be present with my kids. And
yeah,
I love bringing my boys to go furnish houses. They think they're building things. They're like,
that's
they put
awesome.
the beds together. They're out there with hammers and like putting together the furniture. And they're like, Daddy, can we build the next place? And so I want them to be, just exposed to that, and that this is the norm, right? And we play Monopoly all the time. And whenever my one of my sons is always asking, "Hey, Daddy, can we buy this?" And I say, "Well, we need to make some money. How do we make money?" He's like, "Well, we make money with rent. We get
Mhm.
a place, we rent it out, we make money with rent, and that's how we can pay for things."
I
And so
love
just
it.
teaching them these principles and stuff that we don't learn in school,
right.
as much, right? We are taught in school to become, part of the workforce and everything. And so um that I just love, there's no real like work-life balance. I like the integration, work-life harmony is how I look at it. I like to
Mm,
bring my kids to things. I bring my kids to meetups. I'm the guy
Yep.
that's like the dad that brings kids to meetups, but I expose them to that, and that's part of the lifestyle. And then I want to have as many, real estate assets as possible so that when they get to a certain age, they can build their own, real estate portfolio and also have a piece of this. And so that's the whole concept of just, having that generational wealth.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's so
That's,
awesome.
that's amazing. That's what it's all about at the end of the day is
Mhm,
you're building it for you, right? It's something like your hard work. But at the end of the day, it's something you can pass down, right? And,
mhm.
and giving your kids the option.
Yes. The option.
Right. And so I love that you're involving them already so early and having that exposure. Um, One of the last questions is what's sort of next for you? I mean, you got a
Mhm.
business venture. Is the goal to open more markets? What's sort of your the key highlights that you're trying to hit this year?
Yeah, so I mean, I've been continuing to grow the portfolio. I'm getting more and more comfortable with doing so through networks. I've been, building my teams as well. So I have like a really good contractor, local contractor and stuff. So I'm getting to more complex projects. I think I've got a flip coming around here soon. I've done some
Mhm.
rehabs, but I haven't done a flip yet. So I want to graduate to a flip.
Cool.
And then I do want to grow, my footprint in the two markets I'm in, and then expand. I've been hitting up Gladia. I'm like, hey, I'm ready for California. I think I'm ready. So,
Are
and
you
maybe
sure?
I'm ready for a
I
third
know,
market.
right?
I know.
Uh,
She's like, I've sent you like 5 deals,
I,
bro. You're gonna
I
take
I
me
am
down.
in Florida too, so
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
may be more doable.
exactly.
Yeah, we could do those markets too. So I think I'm ready to expand to a third market. And then from the furnished rental co-hosting property management company, we're looking to accelerate growth there exponentially. And
Yep.
so we have some opportunities right now to really grow that footprint. And I think what's cool about the model there is that we can test markets and then start to
Mhm.
expand in those, and then maybe even expand through things like acquisitions. So there's just some cool opportunities there. And so I think just growing the portfolio and growing the footprint of the property management company is really what's here in the future. And it's crazy. I'm not even 1 year, into it, and there's just so many opportunities. And I'm just really testing how fast we can
Yeah.
scale and grow, which is cool.
Hmm.
And we'll see how it goes. Wish me luck.
No,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah, I just want to give you your kudos
Yeah,
because
for sure.
so many people, probably similar shoes, that have held themselves back for whatever reason, right? It could be
Hmm.
family, it could be support, money. But you did things, you had the resources, but you actually did something with it, right? And I'm sure it helped having the support of your wife and family. But big congrats to you, because that doesn't happen often. It does, but you don't hear so much about it, right? Somebody within like less than a year is able to build a portfolio and a business venture, because you took the right steps and you were intentional.
Yeah.
I think that's what takes people the longest is they're taking too long looking at what other people are doing and trying to duplicate that instead of just zeroing in,
Go.
going deep
Yeah.
instead of going wide.
Just go.
Exactly.
That's it.
Exactly.
That's been our theme this year, is like taking action, and we're taking all the action we can get. So yeah,
I love
if
it.
you're if you're
Uh,
if you're on the sidelines and you're thinking about things, just go.
just do it. Just do it. Reach out to Jason, reach out to us.
Yep.
Jason, it was such a pleasure. Glad we can finally get on here. I see a future or a deal
Yeah.
in the future,
Many
for
deals,
sure.
100%.
please.
So,
Yeah.
um,
Partnerships as well too.
yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. Don't forget to like, subscribe. One of the really exciting things that we have coming up is we have the off-market blueprint course and community that we're building out. We're planning to launch in the next week. We found that the people we've collaborated with don't know how an off-market deal works. Well,
Correct.
this literally gives you the blueprint on how to collaborate with others and learn in closing off-market deals, whether it's wholesaling or realtor, whatever the case may be. So stay tuned for that. We'll drop the link to join the wait list, but you'll hear more about it then. If you want to follow Jason, we have all his information in there. But
Nice.
what's your IG or any socials before we drop off?
Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
J.Samson Solutions is my IG. Collective Stays is the business one. And yeah, join the blueprint course for off market. I'm excited about
Yeah,
that. That's what's up.
absolutely.
Let's do
Absolutely.
it.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, we'll definitely send you a copy here. Although you don't need it, you've been closing all these deals, so we need to learn
You
some
can always
things
learn
from
more.
your end. I love
Yep.
it. All right, y'all. Catch you guys on the next one. Have a good day.